All right, this next seminar can be done on either day 2 or day 3, depending on how much time you have. And it's going to be about the new rule changes and just the interpretations of it. What's very important for you guys as head instructors is to remember that this is a good time to keep the sheet that we have for you guys in your hand. And at any time, if you don't know the exact rule, the interpretation, do not act like you know and tell the coaches something incorrect, because it's going to come back to us in the office saying, we learned this at UCA camp. So it is perfectly fine to tell them, you know, I don't know for sure on this, but I will find out for you. And then you will then call Cowboy, myself, or Jim Lord, someone in the office who can get the rule clearing for you. So again, very important that if you do not know the answer, please do not tell them without knowing for sure, just to save us on the back end of that. So take good notes on this section. It'll be very useful. I guarantee you coaches will have lots and lots of questions about it.
All right, coaches, so what we're going to do now, we're going to take about the next 10 minutes or so, and we're going to talk about the new rules that have come out this year for NFHS and ACA. I know a lot of y'all have already had some conversations about this, and we've been teaching some stuff in the classes already, trying to get your squads acclimated to this. A lot of exciting new stuff here. A couple things I want to emphasize to you. Number one is that the ACA and NFHS rules now are almost identical. There's only a couple small differences between the two, which is great. It's great for a lot of y'all when it comes to state competitions and then maybe going to your maybe going to a nationals or something like that. We've also had a lot of rewording so that hopefully they're more understandable for you, because ultimately if you can't understand the rules, then they're not nearly as safe for you, and that's what it's all about, is the safety of the kids and proper progressions. So as we go through this first year in particular, there's going to be a learning curve for all of us, so kind of keep that in mind. I do want to give you all a website. You might want to write this down. And the website is cheerrules.com. Again, that's cheerrules.com. This is going to be a site for NFHS and or ACA rules and rules interpretation. So there'll be video on there, photographs, and then there'll be actual interpretations of, yes, this is legal, no, this is not legal, with explanations on why. So that's a good reference for you all to have. Also, throughout the year, if you have any questions or you have a video clip from your practice and you want to send it in or try to get an answer on an interpretation, I would highly recommend you send it to either Bill Ahern or to Jim Lord. Either one of those people will be able to help you with the answers as far as interpretations go for your rules. All right, so let's go through some of the main rule changes and make sure that we're all on the same page here. And it's not just all about the inversions. There are a couple of other rules that we want to talk about as well. Number one, the first rule that we want to talk about is a little bit of spotting rules and some modifications on wording for spotting. Number one, the first part of this is, going forward, if you have a single base shoulder stand, okay, a single base shoulder stand, that does not require a spotter, and it never has. But if you have a single base in hands prep, like a toss to hands, or if you use like a post up to hands or something like that, anything where you're holding the top person in hands, that now requires a spotter. Okay, and the main reason is because when you have a shoulder stand, is that you're going to be locked down on the calves, and that's going to allow you to control front and back movement. And I know if y'all can picture a lot of your toss to hands or single base toss to hand type stunts, if you picture them, a lot of times that you'll see them wobble back and forth. They don't have nearly the control the base doesn't. So that's why that rule has been put in place, where a spotter has to be there throughout that stunt. Okay. A couple of little things about spotters also going forward is that spotters cannot have anything in their hands when spotting a stunt that requires a spot. So what that means is if you're at a game and you're cheering and you do a double base extension and your top girl has a sign and your third person in the back is sitting there spotting, and then the top person hands the sign down, that spotter cannot actually take that sign from her at that point. Okay, because while spotting, that has to be their main objective, is to be concentrating on the stunt. Now, you could drop the top person to a prep level, and then you could definitely hand it down to them, because a prep level does not require a spotter. So no longer the person in the back could then take the sign from them. So just keep that in mind. Also, one other little bit of wording. This is in regards to spotters in a ready position. And especially with the NFHS, they used to have quite a bit of wording about this. So now it's a much cleaner wording, and it basically says spotters need to be in a proper position to spot And the one position they cannot stand in is with their hands behind their back, which would be something just like this. Okay, this is not considered a ready position to move quickly while watching a stunt. So just keep that in mind. Spotters can't have hands behind their back. Spotters cannot be holding anything in their hands while spotting a stunt that requires one. And then also the new stunt that requires a spotter is the single base toss to hands. So that's one of the new rules that has been put in place for both ACA and NFHS. Okay? Any questions on that one? All right, awesome. Okay, now the next one. This is the one that caused the most fervor, and everybody was like up in arms, and cheerleading has been ruined, and this is about the double downs. All right, so going forward, the maximum number of twists that can be performed in a dismount, a basket toss, a log roll, or anything like that is 1 1/4 dismounts. Okay, so no more double downs. All right, and we can get into the debate about the specifics on it, and is this right or is this wrong, but coaches in general, we're going to talk a little bit more about some studies and some statistics about injury rates within cheerleading. But basically, by a 2-year study is that the injury rate and head injuries such as concussions, 60% of those were found to happen because of body-to-body contact. Okay, so it wasn't people falling and hitting the ground, it was people's heads hitting other heads or shoulders. And as you all probably know, if you think about it or have a squad that you've worked with that has tried or attempted double downs, a lot of times it's because of that. And we can also talk about some of the technique issues that were not being done as well and inversions, etc. But basically, that is the rule going forward. And so there'll be no double downs. 1 1/4 rotations will be the maximum that you can do going forward. Okay, but we have all kinds of positives too in regard to some rule changes. So let's go ahead and we're going to talk a little bit about those as well. And a lot of it has to do with inversions, okay, with inversions. So the last couple years, both ACA and NFHS have both allowed inversions off the ground. That's where a person basically passed through or was in a handstand, was pulled up to a prep level or below stunt in an upright position. You had to have spotters on the head and shoulder, had to be in constant contact with your base. All of that is still exactly the same. The only slight wording that has changed on that is that you do not have to stop and establish a prep level stunt. You can actually pass through prep level to an extended stunt. So all that rule is still in place. Okay. The new part of this, which is real exciting for you all, should be for all of our squads, is that now you can also do some low-level inversions where you're actually inverted while you're off the ground. Now for ACA last year we allowed like the cradles where you could back walk out, and we allowed the prone positions below shoulder level and you could front walk out. Those are all still in play for both ACA and NFHS, but now you can also do handstand on double base thigh stands. You can do handstands in elevators or on basket toss grips. And for these, the specifics on these is that the point of contact or support has to be below shoulder level while the inversion is in play. Okay, so you can't do a handstand at prep level. Okay, that's the easiest one that'll make you understand that, because the point of connection is at the hands and those are at shoulder level. It has to be below. All right, so the point of support below shoulder level. Also, there has to be at least one person who is in charge of protecting the head and shoulders. Again, doesn't mean they have to be touching the head and shoulder part. They could be controlling the trunk or somewhere around the waist. Now, if you were back at the ankle or foot and said that they were controlling or protecting the head and shoulders, that interpretation would not be correct. Okay? So you have to have one person at least who's in charge of that. All right? Now, the other thing from working with squads already and seeing how this is playing out is basically this is how it's going to be interpreted. You can be in an inverted stunt such as a double base thigh stand or in a basket toss or elevator, and you can actually load to an upright position from prep level or below. So if you've got a person who's in a handstand in a basket toss and they drop one leg and the third person grabs it here and they pop her up and she drops down here and then goes up to a prep level stunt being right here, that's going to be considered legal unless the squad exaggerates the height of the load to either try to get a different visual or competitive advantage, etc., etc. I think we all know what we're talking about, like taking that too high. Okay, we didn't want the rule to start forcing bad technique. So you can go to a prep level stunt or below out of most inverted stunts, loading them up. All right, as long as you don't exaggerate the height. Okay. Now there's also another type of stunts which are looked at as downward inversions, like a low-level yo-yo or dropping to an arabesque and waterfall or front walking out. Okay. For those, because those are downward inversions, meaning they're moving the head towards the ground, on those you would need two people to protect the head and shoulders on that. All right, and we've taught a few of those tricks outside during our classes, but you have to have two people protecting the head and shoulders during downward inversions. All right, so that's one of the new sets of rules. Now, on the other one, there's a two-part to this. Number one, we've had the suspend forward roll rules that have always been in place, and now, going forward, you're going to be able to do backward suspend rolls. All right, now the rule's pretty strict on this. Basically, you have to start with at least 1 foot on the ground. You can do the back suspend roll, and you have to land with at least 1 foot on the ground. You cannot land in a stunt. You cannot land in a loading position. You can't land in a prone position. You have to land with 1 foot back on the ground. Okay? You still have to have the two people, two posts that are hand-to-hand contact, just like your forward suspend roll rules. So everything else is the same. And the main reason this rule was relaxed and allows this is because that is a lead-up skill for the brace flips, which we're going to talk about in a second. Okay, so that's your backward suspend rolls. Again, have to start with at least 1 foot on the ground, so you can't have a person laid up in a prone position with 4 people holding them and then do a big giant layout swing out of it. Okay, and then when they have to land with at least 1 foot on the ground as well. Okay, so you can't land in loading positions or stunts. All right, that's a lead-up skill for our last big rule change, and this is braced flips. All right, which is, if any of y'all are in the all-star market, you may have worked on these. Levels 3 and 4 and 5 all allow different versions of this. All right, here's the rules on this. The first rule to remember is that there is no way to do a brace flip with less than 12 people total. It is impossible. If you try to do it with 11 and say either this or that, doesn't matter, it would not be legal. You have to have 12 people. You have to have a bracer on each side of your top person, and the bracer can only be in a double base prep with a spot. Okay, so if you have 2 double base preps with spots, that's 4, 8 people, and then you've got your top person in the middle. They have to have 3 people underneath them throughout the entire time. That's another 4, and so that's your 12 people total. Okay, so that's one of the main rules. You have to have a brace on both sides, and the bracer can be hand-to-hand arm contact, and all of the people have to have spotters. So both bracers have to have spotters, and the top person have to have a spotter as well. Now, in regards to what the top can do, they can backflip, they can forward or backflip. They can also roll, where they actually stay in contact with their bases. The bases don't actually pitch and release. They actually stay in contact with them as well. Okay? If you're familiar with All-Stars, it would be like a level 3 version of this pyramid. So you can roll or you can release. Now, the top person can start in the following positions. They can start basically in any position. Okay, they can start with both feet on the ground or 1 foot on the ground. They can start in a low. They can get pulled out of a cradle. They could be in a flat back or a prone. They could be in a prep level stunt. Any position, okay, as long as you have the bracers able to get hand-to-hand and arm contact. All right, you do your front or back roll / flip, and you can land in almost any position. The only positions that you cannot land in are, you can't land back on the ground with both feet. You can land with one, so you could have 1 foot come down, and then another person, one person of the 3, grab that other leg and slow it down, and then they could walk out if they wanted, but they can't just land with both feet back to the ground. And also, they cannot finish upside down with their head going towards the ground and be caught in an inverted position. Okay? So you can't land inverted, and you can't land with both feet back on the ground. Otherwise, you can land in another stunt, loading position, you can land in a cradle, you can land extended, prep level, anywhere else that you would want. Okay? So again, the brace flip rule, you have to have a minimum of 12 people regardless. Your bracers have to have spotters. Your top has to have 3 people underneath them. The top can start in any position, and the top can land in any position except both feet back on the ground or in an inversion. Okay? So those are the basics of the rules. We're going to take questions here in just a second. But before we do, remember, if you have some questions, as you're going through your practices back home and you need an answer, you can always go to the new website that's set up, which is cheerrules.com. Or if you want to call and talk to somebody, you can call and speak with Bill Ahern or Jim Lord, who will be more than happy to help you with interpretations as well. So right now we'll open it up to any questions and see what y'all have.